Okay, hi, I'm Raichu, the maintainer of Hikari, and I want to give you a little tour of Hikari and show off some of its capabilities in a kind of informal way because maybe you've seen this man page. It's pretty massive, and a lot of people were telling me it's kind of abstract and doesn't really help them to figure out how to use it or how I use it. And I just want to give you some examples how I use it so you can maybe find your own workflow and have fun with it. So yeah. So the first thing if you start Hikari is probably you want to start a terminal or some program or whatever. And I've set up this machine so whenever I press mod return, it's going to start a new terminal. And I did this here. This is the configuration file. I created this shell action that basically starts Sakura, which is a lightweight GTK3 terminal. And now that I've created this action, I can bind it to a key. And so whenever I press mod return, it's going to start a new instance of Sakura. So one thing that you might have noticed is whenever I press mod, these funny little yellow things show up. I call them indicators. And indicators basically tell you something about the view that currently has focus. So like this is the title, it belongs to sheet 1, and it's in the group shell, and it doesn't have a mark. So if these words mean nothing to you, I'm going to explain all of them in the course of this video. So yeah. So now that we have a window or view, we can move that around. And I usually use the keyboard for that. Like I press mod and the arrow keys, and I can move it around like that, and mod alt and the arrow keys and resize it. Of course, you can use the mouse to do that. You can press mod left button, just move it around, and mod right button. And Fish really doesn't like that if you have a right prompt and it looks like that. So let's just clear that, it's ugly. So yeah, but moving around views just by doing this is really super slow, and this is not what I usually do. I use snapping. So I press mod shift and the arrow keys, and you can see that the view snaps to other windows, which is kind of neat if you want to organize your desktop in a nice orderly fashion. So since Hikari is a stacking compositor, all the views are organized in a stack, so they're stacked on top of each other, so they can obscure each other, which is not something that maybe like I put focus on this view and now most of this view is obscured. I want to bring it to the front, so I just press mod U to move it up the stack, and I can do the opposite, move it down the stack by pressing mod D. And it seems kind of annoying because yeah, you don't want to press these buttons all the time. You only really need that when you're using the mouse. Hikari is built for keyboard interaction and not really the mouse. Of course, you can use the mouse if you want to do that, but I don't. And I'm going to show you some actions later on where this moving up and down the view explicitly, you don't have to do that. I personally think this is quicker than using the mouse, but whatever, suit yourself. So let's look at indicators again. So you can see over here we have this number. This is a sheet number. So this is sheet 1. Hikari has 10 sheets for every monitor that you have, and they work a little bit like desktops or workspaces, whatever you want to call them. Different window managers call them differently, and I call them sheets because they work slightly different. They have slightly different semantics. So I can switch between these sheets. I can just, if I want to go to sheet 2, I just press mod 2, and I'm going to switch to another sheet. And here you can see I have my Firefox, and I can go to switch to sheet 3. Just go here, pressing mod 3, and go back to sheet 1 by pressing mod 1. So I call them sheets because it's not really like you're completely switching to a different desktop. So Hikari just has one workspace, and every sheet, you can think of them as a sort of recipe. I want to see all of the views that are on sheet 3. So whenever I switch a sheet, Hikari is going to wipe the entire workspace and it's going to populate the workspace with all of the views inside of that sheet. And that becomes interesting when we talk about borrowing views, which happens when we have more advanced features. So one thing I can also do is like switching sheets, like go to the next sheet. I just press Mod J or K, Mod K to move, like increase the number. So I'm on sheet 1 and I want to go to sheet 2. I just press Mod J. Want to go to sheet 3, press Mod J again, K to move up, and so on. So I usually cycle through sheets by doing that. So sometimes I want to remove a view from the workspace, and I can do that by hiding. So this is where this sheet metaphor is becoming a little bit more interesting. So when I hide a view, I press Mod H to do that. I have no apparent way to get that view back. I can just say, okay, repaint that recipe, reset the sheet, and I press Mod period to do that. And once we come to things like marks, this is a bit more interesting. So hiding a view just temporarily hides a view from the sheet, from the workspace, excuse me. And I usually do that when I have views that have long-running processes, like building the world or building a compiler for like 3 hours or whatever. So I don't want to have that sheet around all the time, and I'm going to show you something to keep them hidden, which is called invisible views. But yeah, so whenever you press Mod period, it basically is going to reset the sheet and is going to show you all the members of the sheet. So one thing you might have recognized as well is like I don't really have a bar or something like that. I usually just run a top in the lower right corner, and it kind of shows up on every sheet here. So even here, if I move this down, you can see I have top running. And I do that by pinning that to sheet 0. Sheet 0 is a special sheet. All the views that are a member of sheet 0 are displayed everywhere. So here, and you can see this weird syntax. This is basically this means, okay, I belong to sheet 0, but currently sheet 1 is borrowing me. So borrowing means when you display a view from a sheet that doesn't really belong there. It's just like I've borrowed from that sheet. And once we have marks, this is going to happen more often. So yeah, of course, you can move a view to another sheet. So if I want to move that sheet to sheet 2, I can just press Mod switch Shift 2, and now you can see it's on sheet 2. I can move it back. So this is very much like you would do that with any other window manager. So let's talk about something that's a bit more interesting in my opinion, like the groups feature. Maybe you've seen this whenever I press Mod. Not only the frame of my focus window lights up, there are other views that are like these orange frames around them, and that means that they belong to the same group. So in this case, this group is shell. All of the terminals that are basically just normal shell views, I put them in the same group. And whenever I'm in a group, I can use Mod caret to cycle through them. So this is a very quick way to cycle through views using Mod caret or Mod Shift caret to go the other way around. And I can also cycle between groups. So you see here we only have 3 groups inside, 3 views inside of that group, but there are other groups. So I can press Mod Tab and go to the next group, and this is the root shell group. All of the terminals that, so let me start another root shell so you can see what I mean. I can press Mod Shift return, and now I have another root shell, and it prompts me for the password, which I'm not going to type in here, but now all the root shells are in one group, and all the regular shells are on the other one, so I can switch between them. And I can always switch between the most important, like the upmost view inside of that group. So you can think of groups as a stack within the stack of views. So every group that is displayed has one topmost view, and just by pressing mod tab, I can cycle between them, which is kind of neat because I have lots of groups. I have this shell group for my regular shells, root shell, monitor, which is down here for like monitor processes like systat or dtrace or whatever, or top in this case. I have a communication group where I put my email and messengers in there, music, video, work, whatever. And you can organize everything inside of these groups. I think that's kind of handy because you always have one most important view and you can cycle between them. So if you cycle between groups, you can see this frame here. This one. Oh, sorry. This one is there's one that is green. I don't know if the color comes out on the recording, but that is the topmost view. So if I cycle between the groups, this one is the group where I'm going to end up. And I can always go there when I'm inside of a group. I can always press Mod Shift Home, and I'm going to end up in the most important group view. Yeah. So if I don't want to cycle through the groups, or I want just to cycle through the views, I can press Mod Shift N to go to the next view down the stack, or P to go to the previous one. And when you can see, I can press Mod Shift Position 1 to jump to the most important view here. So it's kind of so the stacking order of your views becomes kind of important, because now you can use that to quickly navigate to all of these views that you find important. So let's talk about marks. Like cycling is a very quick way to get to interesting views, but sometimes you want to just go to a very specific view. And this is what marks are for. So whenever I press Mod M, I can, now you see a prompt here, I can assign a mark like X. And now this view has the mark X. So if I go here and press Mod backtick X, I basically jump there directly, which I think is kind of neat. This is if I move that view to sheet 3, now it disappears. I can bring it back just by using this mark. I can use Mod backtick X, and now it just returns to me. That's kind of neat as well. So what else do we have? Yeah, let's hide that. And now let's switch. I can also switch to the view that contains this mark. I can use Mod Shift backtick X, and now I immediately jump to the third sheet. Yeah, this is interesting if you borrow views. Something that I forgot, whenever you have a group and you want to assign it to a different group, I have this view and I want to assign it to, let's say I want to turn this into a root shell, and now this is part of shell, but when I enter the password, it's going to be a root shell. I can press Mod G, and I can use readline commands like Control W to just delete it, and I can say root shell. And now we can say all the root shells light up, and now it's a member of root shell. I can just do that. If I don't have an automatic setup there, I can just assign views to arbitrary groups, which is kind of fun. So let's go to sheet 3, and now I want to show you layouts. Hikari is stacking, but I have some layout features which I use to organize my my workspace a bit. So let's clutter the workspace a bit. And now we have a couple of views here, and I want to clean up the mess that I made. So when I press Mod L, I can select a layout, just like Mod L. Now press S for the stacking layout. Now we can see everything is organized pretty neatly. Or I can use Mod G for, Mod L G. Now I have a grid layout, or Mod L V for vertical, or Mod L. What else do we have? Nautilus. Nice little spiral thingy. So let's go back to the stacking view. This is what I use the most, because I can have my editor here and my compiler down here. This is something that I do quite often when I'm at work. I have SSH connections here or whatever is useful for the job, and this is my main view. So we saw that we can cycle through, let's move those views up, so cycle through views in stacking order. So if I cycle through them, you can see everything is not in the order that we expected. This is because, like, as I said, with the stacking, this is still a stacking compositor. We still maintain that stacking order. But with layouts, we have an additional order. So when I press Mod N, I can, and Mod P for previous, I can cycle through the layout just in the order I expect that. I think that's kind of neat. And I can also exchange views by pressing Mod X. So this is, or Mod Alt X to move that to the main view. Also, I can use Mod Home or Mod End to jump between the first and the last view of the layout, which is also pretty useful. Sometimes I don't want certain views to tile. I can use Mod tilde and turn them into this. Now you can see there is this little twiddle in front of 3 here. That means whenever I retile or tile the sheet that I'm currently on, this is not going to get tiled. This is going to stay a floating view, which is kind of nice. So all of these layouts that you just saw, they're configurable. Wait a minute, and you can also reset. I forgot about that. You can always go back to the mess that you made before. So how do you configure that? I basically would recommend you to read the man page for that, but here's how you, so this is the stacking thing that I had, and this is the spiral thing, the spiral layout that I had. You can, it's not that hard to configure them, but you just have to read up in the man page how to do it. It's actually not that complicated, and you can come up with all weird kinds of layouts there. So a last feature that I want to show you is called invisible views. So if I have something that is a long-running process, like I said, I want to build world or build GHC for an hour. Maybe I want to hide that view. And so like start a terminal here, say, just that we know which view we have. And when I hide that and I reset the view, it's always coming back. Sometimes I don't want that. So like hide, go to this sheet, go back, and there it is again. I don't want that. I don't want to see my compiler messages just whizzing by. Maybe I just want to hide that for a longer period of time. So I can press Mod I, and now we can see these brackets around the sheet. This is an invisible view. So when I hide that and I reset the view, it's going to stay invisible. Like I said, I do that for long-running processes. So how do I get back there? If I don't have a mark for that, how do I find that? And I can display all the invisible views on a sheet by pressing Mod Control I, and here you can see, here's my recording stuff. They were invisible all along, and I have a recording group for them, and I can bring forth this WF recorder application. So yeah, if I want to go back, I just reset the sheet by pressing mod period again, and I can go back and forth. So this is essentially how I use Hikari. It's very much dependent on muscle memory. So I usually don't think about what I'm doing, I just do it. It's a little bit like using Vim, if you're familiar with that. So yeah, if you are interested in Hikari, you can just check out the website and maybe join our Matrix channel, or just subscribe to the mailing list and say hi. Yeah, and that's about it. And I'm going to bring forward the mark for my recording, like backtick W, and I'm going to say goodbye, and thanks for watching.